Welcome back to another episode of RecTalk, sponsored by RecTools and brought to you by RecTools. I'm Nitin, your host, the founder of RecTools. If you are in the recruitment world and you're looking to take advantage of some AI software and AI tools, but you don't really know where to start and you want to kind of trial them, head over to our AI playground. We've got a job ad generator, a Boolean search builder, a blog writer, a CV assembler, and a content creator to kind of give you a taste of the AI tools that are out there and almost gateway you into moving to a paid product in the future. My guest today, when we booked her in, I read a phrase not long after, and it kind of really sort of resonated with me, which was, life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it. And I think that's probably a good place to start. My guest today is Holly Matthews of the Happy Me Project.
Thank you so much for having me. I love that. That is a great way of looking at it. And it absolutely is, isn't it? It's about how we react to something. Life is always, doesn't matter who we are, it is always going to chuck stuff in our path.
Unfortunately so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I say it often when I'm doing talks and stuff, and I'm like, I know this is depressing, but, you know, there'll be some people in the room that have been through really tough stuff and they know it, like they've lived it. There'll be some people in the room that are currently going through something. If there's anyone in the room or anyone watching that has breezed through life, you're also going to go through something really rubbish, really painful.
Yeah, it's coming.
And when you run something called the Happy Me Project, people expect a little bit more toxic positivity than that. But I will not dish that out, because life is both wonderful and really, really hard as well. And
I'll be honest, I did think, I was like, right, picking Kynan up on the way in, I was like, I reckon, oh God, I hope she's not going to be one of these like, hi, I'm so full of happiness, but like dead behind the eyes, because it's sort of like, I need to plug things. But actually, no, like you've got a really, I mean, off camera, obviously we've been talking, and you've got a really kind of sensible approach to the fact that like these things exist. People go through shit, but actually let me help people.
I'm glad you just swore there. I wasn't sure if I was allowed to swear in the podcast.
Yeah. Google hates it, but yeah.
I'm like that. I'm like twitching, like trying not to say anything. Thank God. No, I mean this absolutely, and I'm glad that you get that. And I think life will humble you, right? Life will humble you and throw those things in your path. And even if you start that way, you know, the ignorance of youth, I guess, you might start and think, oh, everything's going to be great. I life will chuck stuff in your path, and I certainly have had a chunk, like most people of my age, and I think it just makes me very aware. And also I'm in a position, you know, where in terms of my following and stuff online and the amount of messages and stuff that I get and the work that I do, I've been lucky enough, and I am lucky enough to meet a huge selection of people. And what is always interesting to me is it doesn't matter whether I'm, you know, coaching a pop star or the mum on the school run. We feel the same things, we go through the same things. It might have a different, you know, slant on it, but ultimately we're all scared. None of us knows what we're doing. We're all doing our best, and we're all going to mess up along the way.
It's nuts, isn't it? You have this moment. I mean, me and my like closest pal were talking about this not long ago, and we were like, do you know right now we're the age that our parents were when we first started thinking, like being aware and being like, they've got their shit together. And like, it's such a humbling kind of experience, because you're like, I ain't got my shit together. Like, my parents definitely didn't have their shit together, but they looked like they did. So
to us,
hopefully my kids see that as well. Then they're like, oh, my parents got their shit together.
I'm not sure my kids do.
No.
I think my kids don't. We talk very openly in my household, but I agree. Like, and I often say that I used, you know, even when my kids were really little, and you know, we'd have had a difficult morning for whatever reason, and we'd be going on the school run, and I would always say to the kids, like, you see them over there, I know they look like they've got their shit together, but she was crying in a pile of washing this morning. He's had an argument with his missus, and he's actually quite, but didn't look like it, does it? We don't know. And actually that's one thing I really instill in the girls, and my girls are now 12, nearly 13, nearly 11. I keep getting, it's the next month. So, you know, when they start aging themselves up, we're trying to age ourselves down. But I'm always saying to them, you know, always give out compliments, always congratulate someone, always be decent. And I don't mean like that kind of, social media, just be kind while they're really awful, the worst people, absolute arsehole, like the worst people ever. Be kind in their profile, like, all right, dickhead.
In a world where you can choose to be, shut up.
And like, well, you didn't, did you? Sandra, you didn't. But I always say to the girls, like, be nice and compliment people, and because you just never know when someone needs it. And
on that, it's really interesting because, like, again, recently I came across this post and I was like, that's a really good point. And I was speaking to my wife about it, and it was like, women don't understand, because generally speaking, women get more compliments throughout their lifetime than what a man does, right? And what women don't understand is there are men out there who have probably had months or years between the last compliment they were paid. And not only that, it really means something to men. Like if somebody says something nice to, like compliments a guy, even if it's coming from like a friend, that stays with them, and they think about that. And the next time I'm doing my hair, I'm going to do it that way because he said that looked good.
That's so interesting.
Like you don't think about it until you're like, yeah, shit, we did do that, right?
Yeah, that is interesting, and I've not really considered that men don't get that many compliments. And I guess from a female perspective, women don't give out compliments because they've been taught that if they give a compliment to a man will interpret that in a different way, so they don't. But there's ways, I mean, outside of, the physical self, like there's ways to compliment, and that's certainly something I say to my girls, it's actually really good to compliment, somebody's work or what they're set up or their, your podcast is great. Like that's a compliment I gift you today. It's great. I listened to some of the podcast over the last couple of weeks, and it's great. That's something, when somebody says that to you, it does sit, and it's
a sense of validation, which unfortunately everyone's seeking anyway, aren't they?
Oh,
really, it's human nature too.
Yeah, I think
to go out and seek that validation and stuff. What do you think then has contributed to, certainly in recent years, to the decline in mental health? Because everyone, it's very easy to go COVID, like what trends have you seen with the people that you're working with, men and women? What's the overwhelming kind of like, this seems to be an issue here?
I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's overwhelmed a lot. I mean, we're in a time where we are so. We have so much easy access to so much that we haven't evolved enough to deal with this. When we were cavemen and when we did not have this much information, this much knowledge, and yes, we could say there's lots of benefits of that, but from a brain perspective, our brain doesn't know what to do with all of this contradictory information that we get bombarded with. We also have many ways to compare our lives with other people's lives, and as much as we might not like to admit that we do that, we literally can't help it. It's how our brains process information.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because pre-social media, it was keeping up with the Joneses.
And
it would literally be people.
It's not just the Joneses now. It's everybody,
like society,
the Wilsons, the Khans. That it's like everybody. Like
Because, but he literally used to. When I remember, like it'd be my dad would be like, "Oh, I'm going to get a new car. Why? Well, because he's got a new car." No, that's a bit stupid, but okay. Well, they just had or my mother-in-law still does it. She's like, they had a John Lewis van come. They had a John Lewis van come.
Wonder what they're getting done.
They've spent well. And I'm like, okay. And then sure enough, 3 weeks later, she was the next looking at a new sofa. And I'm like, this is weird. But kind of, X that by however much.
Yeah.
If you're someone on multiple social media platforms,
you've got to be so protective. And I think, in your world as well, when we're talking, business or the work world, there's also this perception, and it goes back to what you're saying, we think everybody else has got their shit together, that they're not, that it's not hard for them, that they're not feeling.
Why am I struggling? Because everyone else seems to be doing great.
And it is nonsense. And I can categorically tell you, I work with people from every level of, the world, and it's everybody's the same, and I'm really conscious on my social media to try and give a rounded view, because I'm really aware, in my world, I get the opportunity to go and do some really cool stuff sometimes. And that might be, TV stuff or magazines, radios, events. And that can look, and it's not exciting. It is, it's still an interesting experience. But the flip side of that is difficult stuff in my life. It's day-to-day grind. It's my house is always a mess. I haven't got my shit together.
If you kind of peel that back though, right? There's that kind of, it doesn't pay to kind of dim your own light to make other people feel better, right? And it's almost like because of the way we've kind of constructed society around this kind of mentality, if I'm doing well, I don't want to shout about it because I don't want people to be like, I'm going to wait for you to fall. You know what I mean? And so you kind of like, so the fact that you have to sit there and be like, oh, you know, but things are like, you know, I've got other things.
I think it's balance, just, isn't it? Because I think you're absolutely right. We don't want to go too far one way or the other. Absolutely. When you have a success, shout about it. What we need to do is, you know, train our own brains to know that somebody else's success is not something that we can't have, or doesn't mean that we're doing terrible, or, you know, I really believe that there's enough to go around. I think when you have that kind of mindset, I don't see, like, I really don't look at even people in the same world as me and go, that's my competition, in like a kind of intense, painful way. Maybe a bit of a fun way. It's good. There's to compete, fun competition, but then
competition creates, it improves like creativity, right?
Yeah, and it shows you somewhere to go. You can think then like, oh, they're doing amazing. Like rather than seeing it,
use that. I don't really like that. That won't work for me, but that bit's really good.
Exactly.
And then you double your game.
Exactly. And I think it's really important to celebrate your wins. Like I would never want somebody not, like when I'm talking about the stuff that I get to do, and I'm not minimizing it. Some of it's huge and I have to pat myself on the back for those things. And so should everybody that's listening and watching. You know, you should do that. It's important to do that. And, you know, I grew up on TV as a kid, and that taught me the opposite. It taught me I minimized everything, and it's taken a lot of work for me to unpick that. And it's still something I have to work on, because I, you know, built beliefs over the years, limiting beliefs that were, if I'm successful, I make other people feel uncomfortable. Because, you know, growing up as the kid on the telly and, you know, making money from being young, it's and coming from a normal background.
That comes with a bit of a knockback as well, right? Because again, in recruitment, there's a lot of ex professional, semi-pro like sports people end up in recruitment. And they all say the same thing. They all tell the same story, which was, you know, I was picked up at a young age. I went through the academy, and then I just stopped trying because I thought I've made it. And it was so gutting when I got that injury and I wasn't allowed to play anymore, or I didn't make it into the team, and I realised how competitive.
And they thought it was never ending.
And that like knocked them back loads, and you see it in them that they're sort of like, you know, I could have been. And so even that success comes with, because every time there's no like it's hard, like I always say this to my kids as well, like there's no kind of peak. There's not like you're going to achieve something and be like, I've done it, I've made it, you know.
Your brain just adjusts, and then you go, okay, what's the next thing? And this is why when we have this mindset of I'll be happy when, it's a never-ending pit. You have to enjoy the journey. You have to enjoy the highs and lows of all of that. And I always say, so I was on TV from being 11 on a TV show called Biker Grove up in the northeast.
Never heard of it.
Actually, people have again now, haven't they? Like it was
I'm
like
not old enough to remember that.
We're far too young people.
Ant and Dec anyway.
All right. Well, they're bringing it back out again. So it become like younger people are like, oh, what is this now? My daughter wants me to move back to Newcastle so she can be on the show. But one of the things, like for me, like if I look at the trajectory of where I was at that age, you know, I wrote a letter to the show, and they brought me in for an audition. I didn't get the part. I auditioned about 6 times, didn't get it. Then they wrote a part in for me. And then I had 7 years on a TV show, which in the entertainment industries, it's nearly unheard of. But I didn't know that, because that wasn't my model of the world. Like my model of the world was, you write a letter, you ask, you get. And I really mean that I still do business the same way. Like I still just ask and see what happens. And like 9 times out of 10, you actually get what you want when you ask, which is, you know, just a good lesson. Be audacious and be bold in that way. But one of the things I always say is one of the best things that ever happened to me was my first big failure. And my first big failure was after Biker Grove, or during the ends of Biker Grove, I had signed to Sony as a recording artist, as a singer. I then did MTV, Top of the Pops, you know, did all of this cool stuff. And then so when it goes out on the Radio 1 chart show, my single, we knew it was not like, you know, it was a weird time. It was like when people were starting to get things online and not buy it. So it was like there was one CD between each position. It was a weird time. And also George Michael had just signed back up to Sony, and all of my people had just went to him. So, you know, I mean, I know we should not speak ill of the dead, but, you know, George Michael did me over a little bit here. But yeah, so that was all happening.
There's worse people to lose.
Yeah, I'll concede. I'll concede, it's fine. But what happened on the Saturday, I knew where it was going to chart. My manager let me know. The Sunday it goes out on Radio 1. Monday morning, I had a call from Sony saying, it's been lovely working with you. Goodbye. And I was, you know, sitting with a big tax bill and you know, no idea what to do next. And I genuinely, you know, I look at that and I think that was the best thing that could have happened to me, because it taught me to get back up. Yeah. It taught me to, you know, move where I was, to pivot, to change up, to decide what do I want. And actually, when I sat with in that, you know, specific example, I could have pursued singing. I could have. There was offers there to continue.
Yeah, you go to a smaller label or whatever.
But I just actually got to that. I sat with it and I thought, I don't want to do that. I didn't actually enjoy it. And I then went back to drama school and continued, you know, doing other things. But it was a really good lesson. Like, when we fail, when we mess up, in the moment, yeah, it's hard and it stings and it's uncomfortable. But take a minute, have a cry, have a cup of tea, because, you know, we like a cup of tea, we're British. And then pick yourself up. As my dad used to say to me, he drummed into me, pick yourself up, dust yourself down and start again. And that is my mindset. And I think if you can build that level of resilience, and certainly in your world, it's imperative that you are resilient.
Day one in recruitment, you're told it's champagne and razor blades, guys. You know, your highs are super high and your lows are super low. And I remember the first time I heard that, and I was sort of thinking, like, because I know people who suffer with like kind of mental health issues and bipolar and things like that, and I was like, this is not the right environment for certain people, because, and you would see it, right? You'd see people just moping about the place. What's the matter? My candidate didn't turn up to interview, and you're like, why is that ruining your whole day? Like, how is that happening? And it does happen a lot, right? A slight kind of knock off the course, and you really do beat yourself up, and then you go, oh, I'm just going to go onto LinkedIn, and then you see everybody on LinkedIn talking about how their personal bests, and we went to Ibiza, we took the team here, we did this and we did that, and you're like, I'm the problem. Everyone else is doing really well. And we had a guest on the podcast last year who made a really, really interesting point, because he was like, look, on everybody's social media, you're connected to like an average of 200-300 people, right? Statistically speaking, of course, one of those people is doing something interesting that day. Yeah. Of course they are, right? They're not all on holiday in Barbados at the same time. They're not all doing a triathlon at the same time. So you've got 300 friends on your social media, as conservatively speaking. Of course, every day you're going to see somebody doing something that you wish you were doing.
And also they're only posting that best bit. If you, I mean, and I don't even mean this in a detrimental way to anybody. Like, of course we're doing that. In the same way back in the day, we took photographs and put them in albums on our best day. And it didn't matter that we go through those photos and we're like, oh, that was the worst. That was the day that mum and dad had that screaming argument and dad left. Like, there's the photo. Like, we know that to be true logically. We know it logically. We know our own behaviors, what we put on social media. But then we go on social media and we lose our heads and we're like, imagine. And I think it's a good tool. When you go on, this is my gift to you today. When you go on social media next, and I don't mean this as a way to like, and don't comment on the people's stuff, but just look at it from a different perspective. You don't know that person that just posted that success hasn't had months of hardship. And that is like oh my God, I've got this moment, and they're showing it. And you don't know what people's circumstances are, and you don't know how hard they've worked to get them there. And I'm really conscious, I get a lot of messages off people knowing my story. And for those that have never heard me speak before, my husband Ross died of brain cancer, and it was very much in the public eye. There was, people knew about that. And I often, even at the time I got the same, people would look at my stuff and think like, how has she done that? Or, they'll praise me as some finished product, maybe like, oh, look how well she's done.
Yeah, like she's come through this.
She's come through. And I'm like, no, I work through this. Like I work every day. Every day. The stuff that I, write in books, or the stuff that I talk about online, it largely comes from my own experience, from my own lived experience, and then obviously my clients and my, you know, qualifications and stuff. But it comes from the fact that I'm in the mud. I'm there with you guys, and I think it's really important that we remember that everyone that we see online is, you know, it's the same for them too.
Everyone's going through stuff, but the thing is, by and large, I think. Recently, the conversation's been a lot more open. You know, there's a lot more kind of mental health charities opening up, people volunteering for stuff. People are actively kind of going like, I need to make a difference now. Like there's Andy's Man Club that are always on my LinkedIn feed, and I'm always like, I want to do something. I think
I got a message off him yesterday.
They're really interesting stuff. And I'm like, it's good that the conversation's happening, and it's really happening a lot more than it ever used to. But it's still, and we all are a lot more aware now of, you know, social media is just a window. It's a brochure into somebody's life. It's not the you know, the nuts and bolts. And
we're aware in the way of like the words.
Yeah, but we still let it bother us.
Yeah, I think we've got a long way to go, and it's the same. The words are there right now. People are, and certainly companies, and there's a lot of lip service in this stuff. There's a lot of ticking boxes. But I think the deeper level, you know, we still got way to go. And I'm not knocking, you know, where we are now is very, very different to where we were when I was a kid, when you were a kid. So we're progressing, and that's a positive thing. But I think there's still a lot of talk without the work. The work's uncomfortable. Like doing the actual work of looking under the surface of what's going on for you, why the same patterns are repeating. That's not comfortable work. And not everyone wants to really get into that.
No, and it bleeds into, especially within the workplace, it kind of bleeds into a whole range of different stuff, right? So the work from home conversation of like, no, productivity is down now, everybody back into the office. And it's like, okay, so when you let everybody work from home and productivity was good, you didn't attribute that to working from home.
Yeah.
Because as soon as productivity dropped, you blamed work from home culture. But actually, by forcing people back into the office and out of what they're now used to, which is time for themselves, you're impacting their mental health and well-being. But you'll fly the banner of well-being is important to us as a company, and as a corporation, we allow our staff to have one mental health day a year, and you're like, that is stupid because. Like, you know, just by multiple metrics, that's a ridiculous concept. But I really feel sorry for the business owners who are in that kind of SME world, right? Maybe they're a lone kind of 1 person, 2 person business. Maybe they've got a team of 10 or 15 people. Like they spend a lot of time thinking and kind of being there for their staff and their staff's mental health. But nobody really asks them how they're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's it can be a lonely space to be a business owner, and whether you have staff or you're working exclusively on your own stuff. And I think, you know, certainly the way we've seen the world go and the working from home, the thing that I come back to is that it's so individual for people. Some people will thrive at home and it won't impact their mental health. A huge chunk of people don't, though. No. And I think what you rightly said, and this obviously spills into when you're at home because you're a business owner and maybe you work from home, is that you know, for long periods of time of not being around people, we get out of practice with it, and then going back out into the world, or you know, it becomes harder and harder. We get so out of practice, so out of that habit. And we need it. You know, we are a social species. We even if you class yourself as an introvert, you need to reboot and be away from people. That's fine. We're all different, but we still need that, you know, that connection with other people. And you know, for business owners who often, you know, one, they're putting everybody else first, potentially in their businesses, it's recognizing how important it is for you to take that time. And I work actually with a lot of business owners who initially get me in to come and do a workshop for their people. You know, that's the initial thing. But I've had more and more, which is positive, that have done it the other way around. And I've really valued that, where they've recognized, actually, if I'm going to encourage my staff to seek out support for their mental health, It really should start with
do the
me.
same, yeah.
I should do the same. And I'm seeing a shift in that, which is positive, and it's probably these conversations. But I would really encourage people, you are not different to your staff, and if you go down, the whole thing goes down.
The whole thing collapses. Yeah.
It does. It's the same. We talk about the whole plane analogy, and the putting the masks on yourself before you do everybody else. But it's the same, within your business. You can't continue your business if your mental health goes. And as a person who owns her own business and largely everything's on me, I can't really not take care of myself, because if I don't take care of myself, we don't eat. So, I have to do that and prioritize that, not as it, we see here this a lot, people thinking it's selfish, or that, they almost think that they are at some different standard. In fact, years ago, I spoke about this with a therapist for myself, and I'll share it with you because I think a lot of people will resonate, especially, people in your recruitment space will be, I'm ambitious. I'm an ambitious person. In recruitment, you'll have ambitious, go-getting, people who are maybe pretty confident in their work and drive themselves. With that type of personality comes a huge amount of pressure on yourself. And I remember being with a therapist, and I was, in early stages of therapy where you dump all the stuff out. Here's all the things. This is why I'm here. And I'm running through it. And even as I'm saying it, I know this is a lot of stuff. Like, I know at the time I was there, my husband had brain cancer. My sister's partner had just been diagnosed with leukemia. I had 2 young kids under 3 or 4 at the time. I was running 2 businesses because I was also supporting my husband with his. There was like a myriad of stuff, and I'm putting this out, and I can hear myself, like, I know that this is a lot. And she said to me, what a lot of therapists will say, so what would you say to somebody else if they were going through this? What would be your thoughts and your advice to them? And I said instantly, oh my God, you've got so much stuff going on. Like, please be kind to yourself. Take some time out. Where can you? And I'm giving all this really solid advice to this imaginary person. And she said to me, so why don't you give yourself that same advice? And without a beat, I said, because I expect more of myself. And even as I heard it, I was like, that is some bullshit right there.
Yeah, why did I? Yeah.
But it's
that's how you,
with
fundamentally,
me.
that's how you felt, right? It's
I felt,
I hold
I'm
myself
on
to this
some
standard,
weird, like,
imaginary
other level.
person going through this stuff.
I know.
Yeah, you're right. For you, this is tough.
Yeah.
Give yourself some time. But me, I can't do that.
No, I can't do that. And I think there's a huge chunk, and definitely in men, particularly, without being stereotypical, I think there is this idea that if I seek help, I'm weak, I'm less than, I'm dropping the ball, I'm selfish, and I need to put myself at some weird standard.
Society is constructed that way, right? A lot of, especially kind of millennials, because we grew up with kind of Gen Z and Boomer parents and grandparents who would tell us, boys don't cry.
Yeah.
Oh, you fell over, just rub it off, get up, carry on. Don't you dare cry, or and then you got kind of go on and, like, you've got to be the breadwinner, you're the man of the house, and all that sort of stuff. And it gets like kind of fed into you from all sorts of different angles. You're watching things on telly, and you're watching, things on social media, and you're looking up to certain types of characters, and you're kind of like, I need to be this certain way. And then the minute you feel like you're not, you don't feel like you're struggling. You don't feel like you need help. You just feel like I'm less. And then you mask all of the stuff that's happening. And this is why we have an issue with men's mental health, because men will go, I will get really good at masking it all. Thankfully, we are now starting to, and it is starting. My worry is that, we're seeing this new wave of, I guess, Gen Z and even younger, whatever the other one is, Gen Alpha. We're seeing this weird shift of this like hyper masculinity thing happening, which all the millennials are like, we've been fighting against this, putting in the graft. These lot are bringing this stuff back all this way. I hope because their minds aren't mature enough to understand 100%. The fundamental. And
that's what I was going to say.
Don't get me wrong, right? There are a lot of things about people like Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson that I'm like, I wouldn't say that, right? Mm-hmm. But there are also a lot of good things that come out of some of the crap that they spout. Good conversations, for sure. But if you take kind of certain things and go, right, if I apply that to my life, like, I never used to like Jordan Peterson, and I was sort of one of his things, and he was talking about his dad's funeral and blah blah blah, and he was like, like a man should make it his priority to not cry at his dad's funeral, and I was like, I didn't cry at my dad's funeral. Like, that's weird. But I never understood why. And it was like, because, essentially you're filling that void that person's leaving and so on. And then I started unpicking it, and I was like, yeah, it's weird. Actually, all of my family are now looking up to me, and they ask me, oh, can you help us with this? Or what do you think of this? And, oh, we're having this done. Can you have a look at that? And I'm like, it used to be dad. And now it's me that they're.
But I think in my thing, those things are not mutually exclusive.
No, of course
you
not.
could have cried and still been the man of the house.
No, absolutely. But it kind of like, but this was it. It was sort of like a mature enough mind can look at that and be like, okay, no, I get that. That helps me understand that kind
dynamic,
of lack of emotion I was maybe feeling because I was more bothered about everybody else.
Of course.
Whereas a young Gen Z or Gen Alpha is going to hear that and be like, I'm not going to cry at my dad's funeral. Why? Because I'm a fucking man. And it's like, that's stupid. That's not the message completely gone the wrong way, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
And it's that kind of stuff where I think, but look, again, people blast and lambast social media, about the negative impact. But actually, if you scroll long enough and look for it, there's posts, I see posts all the time of just men in their cars just unloading. Like I'm unhappy. This is going on. That's going on, and the comment section full of people just be like, just hang in there, carry on.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
It makes me want to cry when I think about it, because I really believe in people, and you're absolutely right. Social media gets a lot of bad press, but there's so much good in that connection. My membership, I have people from across the world, men and women, and seeing them share stuff that maybe they've never shared outside of that space, and then can go on to, it's like, it's a first step, or share on a TikTok vlog that they're doing.
Whatever your release is. Like I would never have the confidence to do that, right? Like at all. I wouldn't ever do that. But the fact that other people are doing it and it helps them is kind of like, oh, that's cool. Like I have a real thing about your why. Always keep your why at the front of your mind, and especially in that sort of professional sense. And I got a few messages after I'd kind of had this conversation on LinkedIn with somebody, because they were talking about why have you set up your business and this, that, and the other, and what do you want to achieve? I want to buy a Lambo, or I want to pay my mortgage off, whatever. And I was like, in a comment section full of people going, like physical
stuff,
valued things. I was like, my why are my kids. Like, my why is I get to walk them to school. Yeah. Hand in hand. I get to pick them up. I get to go to every parents' evening. I get to go to every play. And the minute I pull up on like a Friday and they're back from school and I go in the door, they run to the door. That's my why. Yeah. And people were like, oh, do you know, it's nice to hear that, because I feel less, or I feel weak as a man. Because again, men, and this plays into that toxic masculinity piece, right? I've got to be talking about crypto, and I've got to talk about Jim Bro.
It literally makes me want to vomit when I hear people say, I can't. Listen, I will always say, and I talk a lot about, I call it the ingredients in your life that you need to be happy, and that's so individual to all of us. If you're not aware that you can take charge and choose what ingredients that you want to put in, then you're going to have a real shitty life pie. It's not going to be good if you're just allowing other people to put stuff in there. You've got to make that decision, and you've got to know what that is. If a Lamborghini is what makes you feel happy, fair play to you, right? I'm going to query a little bit under the surface of that. Nothing wrong with having nice stuff. There isn't. I'm certainly not. That's fun, right? It's good fun, but when it comes down to it, when we scrape back, when the shit hits the fan, when life gets tough. You will not give a flying fuck about the Lamborghini. No. I remember thinking this during COVID. I remember sat in our house, early doors in COVID. I took the kids out of school earlier because I'm not going to be told what to do by somebody. So I was like, I'll make my decision and we'll just go home. So I took them in, and it was the early doors where everybody was really frightened and scared, and there was a scarcity around food and stuff like that. And as a single person, it was quite difficult to get stuff. And I remember looking at my house, and I'm lucky in the things that I have, and I was in a fortunate position. We had a garden and all that. I remember just looking around at the stuff in my house, all the your expensive gadgets and your TV. And I just remember thinking, I can't eat the fucking hot tub. Do you know what I mean? Like when it comes down to it, the fundamentals.
Fundamentally, this doesn't.
Does not help me. Or like it's all a bit of fun. I'm not like knocking having fun and go and play around with all the fun things of humanity that there is out there to do. But ultimately, and going back to why, mine is not dissimilar. Mine always comes back to freedom. I want to be free to do whatever I want to do. That means waking up in the morning and doing what I want. And there's a Bob Dylan quote that I always go back to, and it is, a man is successful, obviously in this case a woman, a man is successful when he wakes up in the morning and then goes to bed at night, and in between he does whatever the hell he wants. And I'm like, that to me is, that's my why. If somebody were to tell me what to wear or do or where to go every day, that drives me to get up and work harder. And that includes being around my kids.
This is the millennial awakening. There's loads of people saying exactly that sort of thing. Like this, like we did all the right things. You know, I went to uni, I got my job, I learned to drive, I bought the house, I did everything, and I'm still sat here like, this is shit.
And you've still got a kid on YouTube opening up toy boxes, making more money.
Making more money than me.
Damn it.
Absolutely, But it's like there's this. I think it's like a Russian sort of like little tidbit or story or whatever about. He's German. There's a guy who's a fisherman. He's sat there, he's fishing, and like he goes at the crack of dawn. He fishes. He gets his fish, takes them to the shops, sells them, and then spends the rest of the time just sitting by the lake.
Yeah.
And he bumps into this big, high-running entrepreneur bloke, and he's like, "Well, what are you doing? You're wasting your time. You know, you could scale this operation. You could train people up. You could get a warehouse and put all the fish in there, and we could sell it across the world. And we could do this and we could do that. And then, once we've scaled it and grown it and sold it, you're free to just fish as long as you want and sit by the lake." And he's sort of like, "Yeah, I'm already doing it.
Already doing it.
What is this?
I think
and there's a lot of people that are
on
this hamster wheel that are kind of like slowing down now and going,
and realizing sometimes, I remember a good piece of advice that my husband gave me once, because I'm, I very much have a entrepreneurial ADHD brain, and everything I can see possibility everywhere, opportunity. I can sell anything in this room and make it a thing. And there was, probably not long after at that therapy session I was having, it was a really difficult time, and I knew I needed to stop and slow down. And so I forcibly stopped one of the businesses I was running at the time and was slowing down. Now, I'm not a person you can slow down easily. It's not my natural state. And in fact, my rest state looks like most people's busy, but I am resting. So I was trying to find activities to do that would like help keep my busy mind and hands like doing something, but actually not doing anything if I could. And I started, I don't know where the idea came from. So I like creativity. That's a real like outlet for me. And so I decided, I could make like pom-poms. Like, I don't know where it came from. Woolen pom-poms. And I don't know if you've ever made a pom-pom before, but
my daughter has.
Yeah, you basically wrapping stuff around a circle thing. And you go right and you do it for ages, and then you cut it and you make a pom-pom. So I did it the first time. I'm like, that's actually quite good. So do another one. I'm like, as I'm getting better, I might make a big one. I make loads of small ones. I could make them into a thing. My brain starts switching on, and I'm like, I'm good at this. Like I'm going to become the pom-pom queen, like the queen of the pom. I'm going to sell these poms. I'm going to sell courses on the poms. I'm going to do events. And I then went to my husband and was like, all of these. And he just put his hands on my shoulders and he went, just let the pom-poms be the pom-poms. And I was like, that might be good life advice sometimes. Sometimes things can just be fun and they don't have to be played out to every eventuality.
This is it. I had a moment with, my wife was like, this Warwick Play Village. We were going to take the kids there. And I'm like, okay, cool. We've been to loads of different play villages. What's so special about this one? And we go in and there's nice seating, there's nice food.
It's lovely.
They really look after the parents while the kids play, and the kids are playing. They've got entertainers and they make them do songs and all that sort of stuff, all that good shit. And my wife's like, "This is really nice, isn't it?" And I'm looking around like,
were you thinking about how you could do it? I do it every time.
How much do you reckon a place like this costs? This is
every
brilliant.
soft
It's just a warehouse that they've turned into this. And actually, if you get this and I'm there literally doing the math on my phone. I'm like, I reckon initial outlay of about 60 or 70 grand. They must turn over about 300-400k here. like, this is pretty good. Do you not fancy, like, getting... And she was just like, pull that fucking thing away and, like, look at the kids playing.
Honestly, every time we go anywhere, I'm the same. I'm like, it's like, I'm asking questions.
It's bad, isn't it?
It's how... But, I mean, listen, there's nothing wrong. That's how some people are wired, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But,
no, but it takes away from the fun of being there.
It's actually, an awareness.
When I put the phone away, I'm like, I'm looking at the look on my kids' faces, and I'm like, that's what
I'm probably still
we're not
in
here
the
for a
village.
business opportunity. We're here to watch these two play.
Absolutely. And I think, being aware, this is one of the things I, really work with people on from a life coaching, self-development point of view, is really knowing who you are, knowing your strengths, your weaknesses, your pain points, knowing what triggers you. When we know that stuff, that's when we can support ourselves.
Yeah.
When we stop fighting our own brains and go, this is the reality. I know I do this. And how can I support myself in not doing that? If we both know, if we go to certain places, we have a brain that's busy, so the brain is going to want to go and find all of the things and opportunities. But actually, what's more important to you is your kids. What's more important to me is my kids and being around them and having that time and appreciating that time. How do I support myself? Yeah. It might be as simple as don't go on your phone when you're in there, or it might be as simple as that, or whatever it is that we need to do. But across our lives, it's looking at what is going to support me. So those, your guys that are in recruitment and are listening and watching this, looking at what is currently difficult in your life. What are the tweaks? And I always say tweaks because I don't think it needs to always be a life overhaul. What are the tweaks that you can implement in your life? Hopefully make them habits. It's not always straightforward for people, but if you can't, then support yourself with that. If that feels too difficult, get support from your peers and people around you, from groups, from, and I do things, in my house, I've got notes everywhere because my brain is, very bouncy, won't remember anything. And so, I write myself notes. I have at least 8 whiteboards in my house. There's whiteboards with notes on everywhere. And I judge myself through life, and I don't fight against that anymore because it's pointless fighting against that. If your character is this way, or your life experience and what you've been through means that this thing triggers you, or you're quick to,
this is going to do this.
Is going to, if you can know that, this is why, self-awareness and doing this work on your own, who you are is so key, because it always starts there. You can go and see a therapist, you can go and work with me as a coach, you can do all those things, but if you aren't doing that stuff and working out who you are at this point in your life, because it's, it changes. Yeah. But if you're not looking and going like, who am I right now? What do I care about? Like maybe 10 years ago, I give a shit about a Lamborghini, but I don't care about that now. It's not matter to me. Or, this particular win in business, maybe that doesn't matter. Or maybe it does more now. Maybe I really want the Lamborghini now.
For different reasons or whatever.
And
understanding. Yeah,
really
we used to do this.
Yourself.
We used to do this all the time when we'd have whether a consultant had made a placement or whether that consultant had kind of come to us and be like, well, that job's closed down now. We'd go, okay, well, let's go right back to the start of the process and go through every step, and you tell me what you could have done differently.
Great, yeah.
Because then you can understand how much control you actually do have, especially when you think you don't, you know, and how little tiny decisions that you think are little at the time can completely derail a situation or actually completely take it from where it is now to close,
How do you know how to make it happen again in a win as well?
Because we don't do that at all, really.
No, we don't.
When we win something, or when we celebrate it, but we never look back and go, right, how the fuck did I do that?
How do I recreate
so I can do it again? Or better, or whatever.
And always that stuff, because that kind of assessment is brilliant. If you've got somebody who has low self-esteem, they're likely to do that process with a really unkind mindset. So it's always reminding, it's always with compassion. When I'm getting people in my work to reflect on things in a, might be slightly different, but reflecting, so what could have worked better? Well, what would have supported you there? With certain clients that I work with, they will instantly want to be mean to themselves and be unkind. Well, I'm just crap. I'm a shit person.
Yeah, that's not what this is.
That's not what this is. It's take the personal out of it and just be curious about what could I do differently. Be compassionate, knowing that, listen, we're all the fucking same. We're all going to mess up sometimes. And failure isn't an issue. Failure's just a lesson. It's just, okay, that didn't quite work. And do I want to keep pushing that, or do I just get up and start again?
Yeah.
Or is it a case of I don't actually want to do this, and that's why I was sabotaging it? Like, we have to have these little assessments, and this is why things like practicing mindfulness is a really beneficial tool, and not just a tick in the box that companies spout about. And one of my friends had at his workplace, I won't call the workplace out, they had a mindfulness room. And I said, oh, that's great. Like, what do people do in the mindfulness room? He went, nothing. You said, eat the sandwiches. And that, I said, we don't know what it's for. It's like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they got I'm sure they all patted each other on the back when they thought of that. But mindfulness, essentially, I mean, I'm really butchering it, and I'm talking about, the non-religious sense of it, is essentially checking in with yourself throughout the day, being aware of your surroundings, being aware of where you are, what you're doing, how you're feeling. And I will literally, and you can have this as well, I will put an alarm on my phone that will go off usually around midday, and it will say be mindful, just be mindful. But essentially what that means to me is I take 10 breaths, just 10 full breaths, and I just check in with myself. How am I feeling? Where am I at, both mentally and physically? Do a little body scan. Have I been frowning at my screen for a while? Are my shoulders, do I need to adjust myself? Do I need to go outside? I do a check-in with the basics being, have I drank any water? Have I been outside today? Have I eaten anything that's going to be nutritious for my body? Did I sleep well? Do I need to rest? Do I need to slow it down? Have I been in contact with another human that fills me full of joy today or not? Have I just been isolated? And really checking in. Have I moved my body as well is another one. I check in with those basics because, again, we think we can skip that because we put ourselves on some kind of higher bar to everybody else. If those things aren't being ticked off on a basic level, everything else will function badly. Everything else. Yeah. So even if you get all of that stuff really functioning well, you will have the bump in the road, because that happens, and you'll deal with it way better than if you didn't have that. If you're tired, dehydrated, you haven't eaten properly, you haven't seen it, you haven't been outside, touched grass in a while. If you haven't done that, then everything else is harder.
The bump was coming anyway.
The thing
how
always,
prepared you were for it.
I talk a lot to people about fantasy goal setting that we often do, and I think it's a good thing for us to remember. We set a goal for ourselves. Maybe your guys in recruitment set themselves this target, and what often happens is, when we get excited about this target and we start thinking about what that's going to give us, we get high off the idea of it. We get this dopamine rush. I'm going to be a better person, amazing. We get all high off this. Then we hit the bump in the road, because that's always coming. There will always be a bump in the road. And then what happens is we switch into this all or nothing mindset. Well, I'm shit, I'm crap, I'm rubbish, everything's rubbish. All this overwhelm, all this. And then we either give up that goal, and then we start a new one, and then we go around that merry-go-round again. Same thing again, just getting high off the idea. A different way of looking at that would be to set the goal, to put in actual supportive mechanisms to help you get there, daily habits. Maybe you can't be consistent, but be persistent. That's always my rule. I'm not always consistent, but I'm definitely persistent. I'll get back up. Put those things in place. Put those supportive, put yourself in supportive environments. Chip away at things each day. Check in with yourself. Recognize that you can't, hustle culture can stay in 2014. We're not doing that now. We need to pause, then propel. We need to have breaks. Then you'll hit your bump in the road. And then instead of going into a spiral and overwhelming, I'm just crap and all this horrible negative talk, you will take stock. You will lean on those groups that support you, those networks, those habits, or those things that you've put in place. Those
fundamentals that you've put into place.
Yeah. You'll go back to them, and then you'll complete the goal, and that will support you going forward. But all of those things are not things that we get taught necessarily, and we just get sucked into what we see everybody else doing.
Well, this is it. Yeah. I think that's the key point. We don't get taught these things.
No.
About school doesn't teach you life skills. Well, actually, mental well-being is a massive life skill that we just don't get taught.
No.
So there you go. Look, this has been really, really insightful. What have you got going on? What kind of things do you have coming up in the pipeline?
Well, we could say, I'm going to just plug my book, because we're here a lot, why not? So
camera's there, all yours.
I feel like I'm like one of them infomercials in America. Hey,
I'll be the glamorous assistant.
This book came out in 2022. It did win an award, and it did get to top of Amazon in all categories of books, which I became a bit jaded about.
So did a book with nothing written in it.
I know,
there's a hat.
But in fairness, no, but it wasn't the hat, and that's why I was jaded. So my publishers, I did Lorraine Kelly's show, and that was what boosted it, to be fair. And we came off that, and it hit the top spot in all categories, and I was like, because of that, because what you just said, like, who hasn't? Who isn't an Amazon bestseller? Because you can literally get in some obscure thing, and I was going to say I'm not knocking it. I am a bit. Like, that is not the same.
It's not the validation it once was.
No, it isn't.
When Amazon was a bookstore, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, my publisher, and she had to show me like numbers and stuff, and she was like, no, it is a big deal.
It's done good.
It is a big deal. Like, it's not a small thing. So I was like, all right then. She was like, can you read the chapter that you wrote on like celebrating your wins, please? I was like, okay.
You're shitting all over yourself.
Okay, fine. What did I say? So there's 60 chapters, but each one is only 4 pages long, and it really is for people like you and I who, busy brain people, which is probably all of us, right? I do not expect people to read it in a linear fashion, just flick through it, write in it, use it. It's a tool, and it is very much how I speak. It's direct, and it's relatable and real, and it's not fluffy. And I always say you can give this to your skeptical friend. You can give this to blokes. I know it's pink and that, and it's not stereotypically, but we're modern. We can do what we want. You can give this to your cynical friend, and they will not. You won't be embarrassed, is what I'm saying. You can read it, and you can get actionable tools to use. And if you do the tools in there, it can't be like shelf help. It's got to be used, right? If you use it, you will get benefit from it. So book, and even though this is just between us, right? So we're not going to tell my publisher that I'm saying this, but we just everyone, right? It was among friends.
I'm going to find her, and I'm going to send her just this clip. Look what she did.
Don't tell on me, like. So yeah,
like, she's not even going to watch this. It doesn't even matter.
We never go far and wide. So at the end of the year, in September, I have my next book coming out, and it's called Find Your Confidence, and it is about both external and internal confidence. And I've sectioned it out into different areas where we might not feel confident. So public speaking, it might be in your world, or the workplace, or social situations, or we've got appearance and parenting, all the areas where we just dip a little and we have a wobble with our confidence. So we delve into that. So that's coming out this year. I will also, although I haven't got dates yet, I will be doing Happy Me and a Happy Me and a Cup of Tea tour, which is hard to say in my accent. Tour. We're doing a tour. So I've done big events over the last few years. I've done my Restival events. I will probably have a Restival event, which is a bigger well-being event to celebrate the new book that we're not supposed to talk about at the end of the year. But I'm going to be doing a Happy Me and a Cup of Tea tour, which will really be me going around the country and really low end, turning up at a coffee shop, sit down, let's talk about our mental health. There'll be different topics, different guests, and it's a way for me to meet some of the people that I speak to online, and it not to feel pressured where it's like, you organize an event, you've got to get the bums on seats to cover the cost, and it's all really stressful. And I love doing the event. I love the designing of the putting it together. Or event planners, you are legends, and you
outsource that.
Outsource that stuff. So this I will be doing that. So make sure that if you've enjoyed this conversation, that you follow me on LinkedIn and on Instagram and TikTok if you're young and cool and all of that.
I'm not young and cool. I'm on TikTok.
I know, and I'm not.
I love it.
I'm obsessed.
Just managed to convince Conan to get onto it, because Conan was like, "Nah, it's for dancing children." No, it's not. It's full of
and me, dancing children, and me who sometimes I don't really do dancing on there. They've stopped that now. That was our COVID life. But I'm talking a lot about confidence and confidence tips on TikTok. But come and go to iamhollymatthews.com/all-my-stuff. Or Google me, and if you can't find me on Google, then your internet is broken.
Yeah, you're on the wrong one.
You are. I don't know where you are, what's happening here. Although do not send me photographs of me that you find on, like, of me being a kid on TV or something like that. That's what happens.
It's never ending. I said to my wife yesterday, I was like, I've got Holly Matthews coming, and she was like, I've heard that name. And I was like, yeah, Biker Grove, and what was the
Waterloo Road.
Waterloo Road. I always forget that one. And she went, she was that bully on there, wasn't she? I
was.
was like, she was that bully on there, yeah.
I've always played mean parts. It's because I'm like, I've got a working class accent in dark hair.
And dark hair, yeah.
It's evil. It's very, very evil.
You're northern.
Yeah, northern with dark hair.
You haven't got blue eyes.
No.
Yeah, got the perfect part for you.
Oh, yeah.
Arsehole.
Is she rough? Yeah, she's rough. Of course she is. So, I mean, they're the best part, so I'm not knocking it. But yeah, it just means that there's a whole load of stuff online. People will tweet me pictures of me, like, pictures of me like being like 15, more like frizzy hair, my gappy teeth and that, and like I'm like I'm laughing, but inside I hate it.
God,
like I just think you've got your photographs in the loft at your parents. Mine, my whole growing up is online. How awful. But yeah, come and chat to me, and make sure to follow and stuff, and let me know that you've come from this podcast as well, and I will point you in the direction of what I'm doing, and if it's for you, it's for you. If it's not, it's not. And that's how I do all my business.
Amazing.
You know, absolutely.
It's been really cool. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Cheers. Shall we cut, mate? That was good.
Thank you. That was fun.
Drop that.
I always like it when we don't know where we're going to go. It's more fun.
Yeah, I think so. I just I had